Hello, team players. So, today we're building a ranger to go with our Rune Lord Wizard that I just covered. Let's dive in. For this build's roles, the most important things are going to be your buffs and your recall knowledge. But we're not doing either of those in the same way that our wizard is. Our wizard is giving us status buff. This build will be reducing the multiple attack penalty for our allies. As for recall knowledge, we're going to be focusing on the wisdom-based recall knowledge skills, whereas our Rune Lord Wizard focused more on the intelligence-based ones. Eventually, we are going to be able to use wisdom for all of our recall knowledge checks about creatures, but we also need recall knowledge for outside of combat, which is where our Rune Lord Wizard comes in. And this build can also give us circumstance bonuses to our attacks and our defense, which will stack with our status bonuses from our Rune Lord Wizard. And this is a melee ranger build, which means that it will definitely cover our single target DPR. For today's Ancestry, we rolled Wayang, who are from the Shadow Plane, making them perfect for rangers. They have a ton of feats that are going to help us with our stealth, particularly if we're in dim light or darkness. And for our heritage, we rolled Shadow of the Hermit, which gives us an occult cantrip we can cast as much as we want. You can pick just about any cantrip you want for this, but I would recommend some kind of buff spell, particularly something like Guidance, or my personal favorite cantrip of all time, Forbidding Ward. The occult list is the best support list in the game, and getting a cantrip from there is going to help us a lot with this spell, no matter what you pick. For attributes, the most important is going to be your dexterity and your wisdom. Dexterity is so we hit more. We aren't going to be doing as much damage as some of you may like in this build, but we are going to be hitting more often than most other characters, particularly on our second and third attacks. We'll talk about why that is a bit later when I talk about class. But wisdom is just as important because of our wisdom-based recall knowledge, especially once we hit level 10. We don't need intelligence for this build because our wizard is going to be covering our intelligence-based recall knowledge. But you might want some constitution just for extra hit points. And if you pick an attack cantrip or one that requires a saving throw from your heritage, you're going to want charisma for that. Also, having charisma-based skills might be helpful, but another build in this party is going to have high charisma anyway, so they'll cover those skills quite well. And that's pretty much it for your attributes. For skills, nature is going to be your most important. We'll talk about why when we get to level 10. But until then, you're going to want to put points into religion as well, since we do want to cover those wisdom-based recall knowledge. Stealth is also going to be very important for this build, as we can't be a really good hunter without being able to be stealthy. And we have an Ancestry feat at level 1 that's going to help us with that. As I said before, charisma-based skills might help a little bit here. And other skills like thievery and survival may help depending on your campaign. But as a ranger, we get a lot of skills. In fact, the only class that gets more skills than us is rogue. So we have room for skills that may or may not be useful. We're not going to be good at athletics, so athletics is out of the question here. But other than that, nature and stealth, you can pretty much pick what you want. Now let's talk class. As I've said before, we're building a ranger here, and we're going with the Flurry Hunter's Edge. The Flurry Hunter's Edge reduces the multiple attack penalty of our attacks down to -3, -6, which is already insane, but if you use agile weapons, it gets even better, because then it goes down to -2, -4. And we will definitely want to be using agile weapons for this build. In fact, we're going to want to be dual wielding them. The Flurry Hunter's Edge is one of the main reasons why Rangers are actually good in this system, unlike in D&D 5e, which is why we're going to be hitting a lot more on our second and third attack than most other characters. And remember, we're going to be sharing this with our allies. That's one of the main ways we're going to be buffing our allies. So effectively, we're making something like the Barbarian's Great Axe an agile weapon, which is insane. And like I said, if our allies are using an agile weapon, this just makes that even better. All three Ranger Hunter edges are good, but this one is far and ahead the best one. For our level 1 Ancestry feat, we're going to be taking Refined Motion in Darkness. Effectively, as long as we're in dim light or darkness, we can move 5 feet further when we sneak up to our speed. Because normally, when you sneak, you can only move at half your speed. This increases that by an additional 5 feet. In addition, when you sneak, you can end your movement in a space where you don't have cover or concealment and still be hidden, as long as you have cover or concealment at the end of your turn. Assuming, of course, you're in dim light or darkness again. Basically, if you need to sneak between one instance of cover to another that is further than you can move with a single sneak action, then you don't become observed. You can take another sneak action to get where the other cover or concealment is. You do still have to use the sneak action and succeed on your stealth check, but you don't automatically become observed if you end a sneak action where they would normally be able to see you. So this makes sneaking easier than if you didn't have this feat. Then for our class feat, we're going to be taking Twin Takedown. What this effectively does is allow us to attack twice in a single action as long as we're dual wielding something, which we do want to be doing in this belt. But we can only use this feat on our hunted prey, which means we do have to hunt prey first. But we want to do that anyway because then we get our Flurry Hunter's Edge against them. If we hit the same target with both attacks, we only apply resistances and weaknesses one time. So this is very good to use against creatures that have resistances, particularly against physical damage. We do apply the multiple attack penalty normally, but that doesn't matter near as much as you think because of our Flurry Hunter's Edge. And this helps our action economy a ton, because we can hunt prey, move, and still attack twice. For our level 2 feat, I've gone with Monster Hunter. There's two things this does for us. First, it lets us recall knowledge as part of our hunt prey action, which again is a huge boon for our action economy. Secondly, if we happen to critically succeed on our recall knowledge, we give us and any allies we tell a +1 bonus to their next attack roll against that creature. This is a circumstance bonus, so that means it does stack with the status bonuses that our wizard is giving us from his spells. But this only works once per day against a creature, so we can't keep on giving this bonus. But a +1 to hit on one attack can make all the difference in the world. It's definitely worth picking this up. Now normally I would skip level 3, but it's been pointed out to me that maybe I should cover general feats. So, there are 3 general feats I generally always take: Toughness, Die Hard, and Canny Acumen for whatever our lowest save is. In this case, we're going to be taking Toughness at level 3. That increases our hit points, and it also makes it easier for us to make death saving throws. You could also take Die Hard here to make you die at dying 5 rather than dying 4. We don't want to take Canny Acumen here because there's no benefit for us to taking it here. We're already going to be an expert in will saves right here anyway, just from being a ranger. We do want to take Canny Acumen at some point, but not here. Probably more like level 15, because at level 17, then we go Master. But whichever one you don't take at this level between Toughness and Die Hard, you'll want to take at level 7. At level 4, I've gone with Monster Warden. Effectively what this does is, when we use Monster Hunter, we also get a +1 bonus to both of our defenses against that creature's next thing that they do. So that's saving throws and armor class. And again, if we tell our allies, we can share this with them. It's fantastic. And again, it's a circumstance bonus. We still have to critically succeed on our recall knowledge, but that's not going to be the case forever. For level 5 Ancestry feat, I've gone with Shadow Play. For one action, if your last action was a melee strike that damaged your opponent, you can tumble through your enemy's space with a +2 bonus on your acrobatics check. If you succeed on this, then your shadow rises up from the ground, granting flanking until the beginning of your next turn. And this, of course, is a circumstance penalty to their AC, making it even easier for you to hit them again. What you can effectively do is use your first attack to hit them, use this, and then use Twin Takedown. And that's not even including any debuffs that your allies are giving it. So I didn't talk about this when I was talking about skills, but acrobatics is important here because of this feat specifically. For level 6, I've gone with Twin Parry. If you spend an action, you can give yourself a +1 bonus to your AC until the beginning of your next turn. Or a +2 if your weapon has the parry trait, which some agile weapons do have that. Unfortunately, if even one of your weapons gets disarmed or something, then you no longer benefit from this feat. And this won't stack with Monster Warden. However, you're not always going to critically succeed on that recall knowledge, so this is a good thing to do when you don't. I already talked about level 7, but yeah, you're going to want to take either Toughness or Die Hard, whichever one you didn't take at level 3. Level 8 is when we can start giving out our Flurry Hunter's Edge, thanks to Warden's Boon. Effectively, we give our Hunter's Edge benefit to a single ally until the end of their next turn. In addition to the benefits of Hunt Prey, which aren't all that great, to be honest, other than giving them our Hunter's Edge benefits. This is particularly good for this party because our Monk, which is the next build I'm going to be doing, is definitely going to be using Agile unarmed attacks, which means they benefit from our Hunter's Edge just as much as we do. For our level 9 Ancestry feat, we're going to be taking Dance of the Tiger. We attempt a performance check against a will DC of one enemy. If we critically succeed, then the creature is frightened too, as we step on its shadow. As long as we are on its shadow, it can't reduce its frightened condition below 1. However, if the creature moves more than 120 feet away from you, or you don't end your turn adjacent to them, then this feat goes away, and they're immune for 1 hour after that. If you succeed on the check, the creature is only frightened 1, and the connection breaks if they move more than 60 feet away from you. This won't stack with something like the Fear spell from our wizard, but the wizard isn't always going to be able to cast that particular spell, or even frighten the foe. In addition, this also means that they're stuck at frightened 1 as long as we are in melee with them. And if they want to break it, they basically have to waste their entire turn. And even if they do, they'd have to have a speed of at least 40 to be able to break it in a single turn, which is action economy manipulation. Not as much action economy manipulation as our wizard does, but it definitely helps. Of course, that's if we critically succeed on the performance check. If we regularly succeed, then they have to spend 2 of their 3 actions moving away to break this, assuming they have a speed of 30. If they see a 25, then they have to take all 3 of their actions to get rid of it. This is another reason why charisma might be important here. And the last feat I'm going to cover in this video is Master Monster Hunter. Remember how I said that nature was going to be important? This feat is why. Firstly, this allows us to use nature to identify any creature in the game. It doesn't matter if it's a dragon, an animal, or undead. We can use nature to identify it now. In addition, we can give out the bonuses from Monster Hunter and Monster Warden on a regular success rather than just a critical success. This feat alone is what makes Rangers incredibly good at recall knowledge. Because as long as you are good in nature and have high wisdom, You can identify anything in the game, as long as it's a creature. I always try to take this feat whenever I build a ranger, because recall knowledge is a lot better than most people think it is. But we are still going to want religion for this build, simply so that we can make out of combat recall knowledge checks about religions. Alright, we're a ranger, so no spells to talk about. But we should talk about free archetype. For starters, dual weapon warrior is amazing here, as you'll get things like double slice. Double slice will compete with twin takedown, but sometimes you're not going to have the action to hunt prey. So this will allow you to make 2 attacks, and you won't need your Flurry Hunter's Edge. And of course, you can take other feats to help out with your double slice. And Dual Weapon Warrior will also give you access to things like Quick Draw and Twin Riposte, which you wouldn't be able to take with this build otherwise. The second archetype I recommend for this build is Swashbuckler, because why not get some panache for extra damage for finishers while you're using Shadow Play. And you can pick the Battle Dancer style to make yourself even better at performance, which will help you with your Dance of the Tiger. In addition, if you really want to lean into the darkness side of this build, you can absolutely take the Shadow Dancer archetype, as that just lets you take advantage of darkness even more. And the last archetype I recommend for this build is Scouts, because that's going to help you with your stealth as well. In particular, Scouts Charge is another way that you can get that off-guard condition. And that's the builds. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. You can also check out the links in the description below for my Patreon, my Discord, and all my social media. And of course, on Friday, there's going to be a live stream talking about more Runelord stuff. So, I'm going to be here on YouTube live streaming that. So you guys can definitely look forward to that. My Patreon page is where you guys can get a Google Sheet for this build and all my other builds. And I do want to thank all my patrons, particularly Daniel Landis, who's been a team manager for a really long time. And if you guys want to see the Runelord Wizard that I've been talking about for this entire video, you can check out this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.